Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Man, the brothers back in the studio. It's good to have y'all back moving around after a good break. You all traveling on the road, spending time with your family. Got to talk to you, but I'll ask you officially on air. I hope you had a good Turkey Day is what I'll call it. Charles, house was yours?
Oh, it's phenomenal. Got an opportunity to go back to Jackson, spend time with family, and had a lot of family and friends in town, and always get an opportunity to play a little golf with the guys I grew up with. That's a fun time. So, much needed break. Worked on a little schoolwork as well. So it was fun, but it was busy.
With that being said, did you get to keep your wallet in your pocket?
Barely. Barely.
Mike,
so far, so good.
Lucky? Yeah. Were you as lucky on Friday and Cyber Monday and all this Sunday, spend all your money?
Oh, yeah, barely. I'm like CV. I barely kept. I put a chokehold on my wallet. I was like, So, no, my Thanksgiving was great. I had a chance to play a little golf with the boys. Was on the road to a place where family gathered together, not too far off the beach, but about 3 or 4 days of relaxation, and it was good. Had to work a little bit, but it wasn't bad. So,
man, there's something about being saying you at the beach. You heard that, y'all?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, he kind of slipped that in there, didn't he?
Yeah, he played off something. It was all right. So, okay, I guess it was. You get to be on the beach for Turkey Day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, coming from Brazil, they need in the beach. I mean,
hey, it's good to be Mike Washington.
We got to think about our career paths. It's something different.
It is good to be Mike Washington, I tell you.
So, gentlemen, it's good to hear that you're back. Shout out to all the lab listeners. You know, again, those that were able to jump on and see us on Turkey Day, I appreciate you. And we shouted you out then. Those that had a chance to watch it afterwards, good stuff. And for those that came up and got us on Sunday morning, it's good to have you back in the lab. I want to shout y'all out. It's big time week now. Hey, there's only a couple of more HBCU football games, literally, to see how we close out things. And it starts this weekend with the SWAC championship game, SCG for short. With that being said, we have some tough news out there, at least in the coaching land. Grambling State announces change in the leadership of football program. This is coming straight from the Grambling State website. The Grambling State University Department of Athletics and Dr. Travion Scott have announced a change in leadership of the GSU football program. Head coach Hugh Jackson has been relieved of his duties effective immediately. We want to thank Coach Jackson on his contributions to the GSU football program. We wish him well as his full future endeavors, end quote, said by Dr. Scott. Quote, this was not an easy decision to make, but one that we felt was necessary to move the program forward. The goal at GSU is to compete for championships every year. As we move forward, we will intentionally in finding the right person to lead the program back to its rightful place as one of the top programs in this country, end quote. Co-offensive coordinator John Simon has been elevated to the interim head coach and will assume day-to-day operations of the football program. A national search for a new head coach will commence immediately. With that being said, I'll go back to you, Mike. Any thoughts that you want to share on this announcement?
Yeah. Whenever you make a coaching change like that, there's a couple of things. It's drastic. That means things have come to a head, and the organization has made a decision that this will not go further. My second thing is, who next now? We've had 4 or 5 coaches with NFL experience, and some seemingly work differently than others depending on the organization. Here was Hugh Jackson, coming in with some experience, didn't quite work out. Who next? What's the pedigree? What is Grambling looking for that culture? And then number 3, to Hugh Jackson, he's had a couple of stints. And you can argue, well, he's done well here or not done as well here. What's next for him? Where does he go next? So those 3 questions are really kind of just burning in my mind. Where does he go next? And then second, who next for Grambling? What would they look for in that culture? If you look at the coach that was before him, kind of a different coach, different approach. So what's next for the Grambling culture going forward?
Charles?
I think the immediate thing that jumps out for me is how much did the crime effect take a toll on the conference in regards to how you do your program, especially within a 3-year window. I think that's a tough question to ask. I thought Grambling, for the most part, looked a little better this year. They definitely had a ground game that was very worthy. Got an opportunity to see them up close in the State Fair Classic with Prairie View. It's always a tough decision, especially when you think a team is, close to turning the corner, but hasn't done it yet. I will say this: Hugh Jackson, for his part, always amenable with the media, always available, things of that nature. So it's a tough decision, but for that program, they expect to compete for championships year in, year out, and I'm not sure how much of a toll does that put on Grambling football.
Yeah, I heard you say that, and heard some other people say that, and he said that in there. I hate to announce this to people that expectation in this new configuration of SWAC expansion, that's done.
Yeah,
that is done. That is a world of generations ago. You think that you're going to compete in this conference every year for a championship?
No,
that is done.
But can a fan
base? And it begs the question is, why would I say that? Because you have at least 9 to 10 schools in this conference that are serious on the football side about trying to be competitive and win championships. So just by the definition of the formula, your ability about this new era with transfer students, the changing of the money associated with NIL, your ability to build programs is going to be significant. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but to think that you can do that consistently year after year, you're out of your mind if you think that is real. I'm not saying that fans can't have their own expectation. Have that. But the problem you don't understand is you're not the only fan base. You're not the only athletic director. You're not the only president, chancellor out there trying to do that. So what you're going to do is create an arms race, and the financial status of being able to do these coaches in this position, you think that you see an arm race. At the other level, you're going to see that mimic in its own way at the HBCU level.
That's why I asked. I guess that's why I asked, what's next for them? What's next for?
They gonna do what Texas Southern. They gonna do what Pine Bluff did last year. What Valley had to do because somebody left. They gonna do what these programs. They gonna do what Southern trying to do. They gonna do, but there's no guarantee that you gonna get the right coach. Let's say they even all three of them get the right coach. They got to play each other. That's 50% of just one division. By definition, you're not going to beat all them teams consistently every year because everybody's trying.
At what point does at what point does an athletic director not have a human nature approach to the emails that come flooding in after a loss? I mean,
I think they are. I'm not saying that it won't change things. I'm not saying that people's expectation won't change. I won't say that, but you're gonna see this carousel of coaching. You're gonna see what's taking place. You're gonna see this as a more regular approach to what happens in the SWAC because of the fervor, the Celebration Bowl, all that's at edge. All that's gonna happen in regards to what that looks like.
It's tough. It's tough. I don't envy athletic directors' positions in terms of how they or what are the metrics in terms of getting to the next point. You're gonna see them churn as well, Charles. It's gonna get back on them. They're gonna churn too. You're not gonna see these long established ADs in any place anymore. It's gonna churn. And I can tell you one thing. Watch what I said. You don't have to believe what I said. Watch it. Watch for the next 5 years and come back and talk to me and be like, damn.
Yeah.
No, I just pay attention and research and read this. I know what's gonna happen. It's the expectation. And don't get tripped because this expansion stuff is gonna happen too. Don't let the conference expand again. It's gonna get worse. Because the state's gonna go up and you're gonna have more numbers of folks trying. So it's not done. It's not done. It's the nature of business.
But in this culture that we have, you throw in the transfer portal, you throw in the competitiveness, you throw in. I keep asking the question: was 2 years enough with this Grambling culture? Maybe I'll ask it that way. Was 2 years enough?
That's the great question. And the problem you have with that question is we're not intimately involved in the Grambling culture. I want to be very clear on that. Nor are we in the Southern culture. So I'm not even saying the decision they made was wrong. And that's what people get confused. Right. Because I'm saying what is the nature of the output. I'm not saying your decision is wrong. Because if you got the wrong person, you can't wait and make the change. But then it begs the difference in terms of what kind of decisions are you making to get the wrong person?
Yep.
What is involved in your situation that didn't allow the coach to have a success? Because oftentimes we just want to put it on the coach. But all the resources really there for the success in this hyper-competitive component. And are you going to be able to do that with the next individual? Unless you're just going to catch magic in a straw.
Let me ask this question, Dr. Bill. Is there a way to temper fan expectations?
Nah, it's over. We done jumped over the Rubicon. It's over. It is what it is. And that's why I'm not mad in terms of saying that they shouldn't do it. I want to be very extremely clear. This is the way of life now moving forward.
Yeah.
We've jumped over that Rubicon, and it's our understanding and expectation. And like I said, all this is going to do is drive up the price of a head coach. Because now the demand is going up. And we know simple businesses supply. There's not enough coaches out there at that pedigree that you want in terms of supply. So their salary is going to go up. And you know what happened when their salary going to go up? People's demand and
expectations grow.
It's going to go up.
Right.
Which is going to create what I'm telling you, the churn. It's going to flip. It's simple in terms of the equation. So if we really look for what it is, we know what's going to take place. And then the more success your coaches have, they're going to move on their own because they're going to try to do what? They're going to try to stay ahead of their own curve. Now you really got to have a system of what it means to replace the coaches.
Well, see, I'm a coach. I have to come in and say, listen, fan base, you have to give me X number of time to make sure we get this right.
Coach, they can be all excited. They're going to say yes for the first time. What they see as the bad call, the cost of the game, or the offense is not doing as well as they expect. They see a backup quarterback they think is better than the starting quarterback.
Exactly.
They see a defensive player that can't tackle, even though you just spent these hours teaching them.
They don't like the plays you call them.
Recruit better players. They're going to swear that this kid they went to this other school was supposed to sign with your school, even though you know when you went and offered the kid said, no, I'm going over here, period. They don't get all that. All they gonna know is that you not winning at the clip they want you to win. So it's over. Don't worry about it. So now, don't try to no. The head coach ain't gonna be like that. And then you got the problem is it's gonna be a percentage of the population, no matter who you bring in, they ain't gonna like it.
No, that's very true.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very true. Yeah.
He can be the perfect. It don't matter. It can be Nick Saban. They'll be like, man, why we bring Nick Saban over here? We can't afford it. You know, he can't operate in this.
He doesn't know the swag. Yeah, I know.
He don't know the swag. Yes.
Yeah.
He can't bring all his coaches with him.
Etc. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me close out on this. Bayou Classic had a better attendance than the FCS playoff games combined from Clutch again. The Bayou Classic, 50th annual Bayou Classic was 64,698. This is old news as we know. All 8 FCS playoff games combined to draw 42,653. Y'all know this. I just said it to put it on the record. With that being said, we're going to take our first break, come back on the other side. We'll get into some more talk. We'll get into some superlatives in terms of some players in the next segment as we get to moving. We'll start breaking down the game. We'll look at it from a defensive perspective. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
As technology continues to
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Sports Lab, and we have the SWAC football championship game, 3 o'clock Central Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN2. Prairie View A&M comes in, Tallahassee, Florida. SWAC Major Division Game of the Week. I guess that was pretty easy, right? Bragg Memorial Stadium. As I said, Saturday, December 2nd, you have number 4, Prairie View A&M Panthers sitting at 6-5, 6-2, at number 1, Florida A&M Rattlers 10-1, 8-0. In terms of this matchup, 1 versus 4. Gentlemen, I want to break this down by segments of the team. So obviously, many people say defense wins championship. So I believe we need to start right there. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball. I'm gonna go with you, Prairie View. I'm gonna go with you, Mike, first to look at Prairie View in terms of their defensive framework, and then I'm gonna come to you, Charles, and then get your thoughts on defense for Prairie View.
Well, let me start off by saying that in the last 3 or 4 games, the Prairie View defense has stepped up big. One of the weak sides of their defense is, and everybody knows it's no secret, has been a secondary. Teams have beat them with the passing. Their secondary has stepped up. Prairie View is like number 10 in defense in the SWAC, allowing 30 points a game. And if you break that down, most of that is passing yardage. So that is one thing that going into this game, Prairie View is going to have to they're going to have to put a lot of pressure on Musa, make him hurry up, make him uncomfortable to take a little bit of the pressure off the secondary of Prairie View A&M, which has stepped up big, but has still been probably, if there's any weak component of their defense, it has been the secondary. I think that the linebackers for Prairie View, which are a strong unit, are going to have to step up and make Musa uncomfortable to alleviate a lot of that pressure off the defensive back for Prairie View A&M University. So that's the one thing that stands out to me. Number two, the last time these two teams played, if you look at it, I mean, the balance by FAMU, I think passing, they had all just under 300 yards, 453 yards of total offense, both passing and running the ball. So again, and I say that to say that if Prairie View can also put enough pressure on Musa to make this a one-dimensional game, meaning they can only run, then Prairie View has a strong shot as well. So that's my initial analysis of it.
Charles, to you, I want to go the same question. I want you to look at Prairie View's defense. From your perspective, what do you see Prairie View looking like in this matchup?
Defensively, over the past 3 games, they've been playing lights out football. The game against Arkansas Pine Bluff jumps out in terms of allowing, I believe, only 12 yards passing the entire game. They shut out Southern. When you take a look at what they did with Southern in the second half, I believe 6 drives, only 30 yards, things of that nature. And in those games, I thought it was the front 4 that really did a bang-up job in terms of making the quarterback uncomfortable. When you talk about guys like Derek Ray, Jamal Marshall, Calvin Presley, Darren Vasquez, Miles McCaney, and you mentioned the guys like Warren Shank, Keyshawn Johnson. They've all done a tremendous job in terms of keeping things in front of them. I've said for quite some time now, I think the key to knocking off FAMU, I don't think it's any secret. You got to put some hands on Jeremy Musa because I don't think FAMU's running game is something that scares you. They've been effective, but they don't have a 1,000-yard rusher. I think, if I'm not mistaken, their output, their leading rusher is somewhere around 400 some odd yards. So Terrell Jennings. Terrell Jennings. Yeah, Terrell Jennings is somewhere around 400 some odd yards. So I think that's going to be key. They've got to figure out a way to get to Musa because if he has time back there, he carves up secondaries. I mean, that's who he is. He is a SWAC Offensive Player of the Year for a reason. So in some manner, you've got to figure out a way to dial it up at the right time and make him uncomfortable back there. But I think there's a couple other things that have really jumped out for me with regards to Prairie View. The times that they've bent, they haven't broken. And that jumps out for me. And I think that's going to be one of those, little nuances if you look at in this game. If they can figure out a way to make FAMU settle for field goals inside the red zone, it's going to go a long way.
Good stuff. Let me stay with you, Charles. Let's look at it from the FAMU perspective. What do you see with this defense? Obviously, people know the numbers. They've been stout. They, lead the league in terms of defense. And a lot of ways, that's really where they butter the bread, if you would. Yeah. FAMU's defense has played lights out football, and I don't think it's any secret. I think the motor behind the engine of Prairie View's offense is the running game. And when you can stop Caleb Johnson, Ahmad Antoine, Ronald Young, Jamarius Brooks, because they do have a 4-headed monster, and those running backs all are very good at running in between the tackles. They can bounce it out. They catch balls out of the backfield. They all have a unique set in terms of being Swiss Army knives. They can do a little bit of everything. But I think the key is for a FAMU to be able to stop Prairie View's running game and force Trezon into throwing the football. Very interesting stat. 5 out of Prairie View's 6 wins. Trezon has not attempted more than 20 pass attempts. And I think that tells you a lot about when Prairie View is humming on offense. They'll get those chunk plays, but it's not necessarily a lot of pass attempts from Trezon Cavil. Great point, man. We should say that a little bit for the offense. It's so good you had to put it in there. Mike, what do you think thoughts about FAMU in terms of their defense?
I think Chuck kind of hit it on the nail. Their defense is very solid, without question. I think, they're being tops in the league. They allow 14 points, 14 points, 15 points per game. And that's tops in the league. So that goes without saying. I think the teams that have done well, against FAMU, at times Southern even have had basically a mixed bag of offensive plays, meaning they mixed the pass with the run. They kept the FAMU defense jumping a little bit and made them guessing, spread them out at times a little bit. And I think that's how you have a good time. But FAMU, in this case, will have to, if they're pacing Prairie View, they will have to do them just like they did the last time. And if you look at the last game they played, they basically made Prairie View a one-dimensional team. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at Conley only had 90 yards passing. So basically they relegated Prairie View down to running the ball. So, and that's key. You make a team one-dimensional, and you pretty much, that's half the starting and winning the game. They have a very good linebacking or solid defensive line up front and a linebacking core. And I think that's the key. They're balanced across the board, and it'll be very hard. So Prairie View, as they face that, will have to spread them out, keep them guessing a little bit.
I don't know what they're feeding them boys in FAMU, but they just seem to keep put linebackers, defensive ends, or whatever you want to call it, at least on the defensive side of the ball. And if you look at it overall, first team defense, FAMU has 3 players on that side of the ball, and Prairie View doesn't have either. But as a team, as you said, Prairie View's got it done, especially of late, to their credit. Isaiah Major, Defensive Player of the Year in terms of what it looks like on that side of the ball. The other thing is fascinating when you talk about these thoughts here is that we always look at it in terms of the East and West. That last weekend was a big test in regards to the West teams in their matchups against the East. And you basically had, 2 and 3, if you would, top teams, 1, 2, and 3, facing each other in terms of East-West. And you finally got the West getting the best of the East, which I thought was interesting, with Prairie View over Alabama State and Alcorn over Jackson State. So it's interesting. Now, it didn't include FAMU, but overall was 9 wins for the West and 11 for the East, which is most closer than it was the last 2 years.
I think that was significant, that last win against Alabama State, because when I take a look at FAMU's defense and Alabama State's defense, very similar. Very similar. And for Prairie View to be able to kind of stick to that game plan and pound the rock. And one of the things I don't take for granted, Prairie View's offensive line, they're veteran, they're nasty. And over the past 3 games, they've been playing some really good football. So I like the matchup with Prairie View's offensive line going up against this very, very stout FAMU defense.
All right, let's take our next break, and then we'll come back on the other side and get into a little bit of the poll rankings. We freeze in Division 2, but I won't re-show it. We get a chance to come back on the other side and get more into the offensive side of the ball and talk about that perspective in terms of both teams. With that being said, we'll be right back after this break.
As technology continues to bring changes to the world of education, it's time we also reimagine teacher professional development. Gone are the days of one-size-fits-all learning that can only be accessed at a specific time and place. The Stride PD Center is an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that allow educators to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. The best professional development plans are those that include a level of flexibility and choice for educators. Whether you're a teacher, school, or district, visit us today to take charge of your learning.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, Don't delay. Call CAVIL.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna love and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. As we get into it, this is the mid-major football top 7 poll rankings in week number 13. It's pretty obvious the Benedict Tigers will be the champion. But we do have some changes, as you see in the top 7. Basically, you have in the top 10 rankings Fort Valley State. But for this week, we have what we call a frozen ranking. Everything stayed the same in week 13. So we'll follow this out because we do have at the end of the year, we have the addition of the Beach Bowl that will be played this year, which will feature Fort Valley State out of the SIEC versus Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls. So if you would, you can go ahead and show the next slide that talks about that matchup there in the bowl game, Roy, where we have number 5 versus number 10 in that matchup of what that looks like. So just wanted to give an update that it is frozen. And so from that perspective, giving you an update there. Any thoughts quickly on that matchup, Charles?
It should be a fun game between Johnson C. Smith and Fort Valley State, very deserving teams in terms of getting a bowl opportunity. But I think the poll proved it out. Benedict was by far and away one of the best teams in Division II football.
Do you think Fort Valley, does the CIAA, SIEC, obviously you have Fort Valley ranked lower in terms of what they able to do this season. Last couple of seasons, the CIAA, it seemed to have more of the top teams in it. SIEC, historically, a lot of folks look at that as more of the football league. Is this any indication in terms of a shift? If Fort Valley can get this done, are you still looking at the CIAA being the tougher of the 2 leagues? Where are you with that?
That's tough because CIAA has definitely afforded themselves over the past few years. So I think you can make a good hard argument. CIAA, they ain't just a basketball conference as many people might think. So I think Johnson C. Smith, they can go in and get something done here.
Mike, let me ask you that question first. CIAA, SIEC, where are you leaning to the power of football? Is that going to come in anyway? You have Johnson C. Smith ranked as 5, and they're representing the CIAA. They're out of that South, what people have some question with. No longer do you have really divisions in terms of the SIEC. Previously, Fort Valley State, that would have been in what you call the East Division. They're only ranked 10 in my rankings here. As we've frozen this week, but CIAA, SIEC, where are you looking at in terms of the best football right now?
I still lean to the SIEC as the stronger football conference. Johnson C. Smith did have some quality wins. They had 5 wins. Who they beat? Livingstone. I think they beat Lincoln and a couple of others. But if you look at quality of wins, you look at where Fort Valley fell this year in the SIEC. It was right below Benedict. We said it was Benedict and everybody else, but in a close, second, you have at least Fort Valley in the mention, beating Kentucky State. They beat Allen, which is also somewhere in the top 10, and they have other quality wins. So I still lean toward the SIEC. Sorry. It'll be a good bowl. It'll be a good game for both. But I lean toward the SIEC, and there's Benedict and then everybody else.
Good stuff. As I said, this week is frozen, so we won't get into the breaking down as we usually in the top 7. You see them there. No changes, 1 through 7. Benedict Tigers at the top of the poll, ranked number 1. With that being said, we'll take our next break. We'll come back on the other side and come back. And let's talk a little bit about the offensive side of the ball for this SWAC championship matchup in 2023. Stick with us, be right back after this break.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
You see, Head & Shoulders has scalp shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. We're never not working. Number 15?
That's my rub.
Ooh, nice.
Never not working.
Never, ever, never, ever not working.
Welcome everybody to Juneau, Alaska.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders scalp shield technology.
T. Madden & Associates is a sophisticated and experienced law firm located in your neighborhood. We're turning injury to cash.
T. Madden and Associates obtained almost $2 million for my injury. They turned my injury to cash.
Now, we can't guarantee how much your injury is worth, but we've recovered millions for our clients.
Call T. Madden & Associates at 833-PAID-123. That's 833-PAID-123.
This is Brian Fulford. Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Bishop and Professor Washington. Let's get back into this SWAC championship game. It's the big one. Somebody's going to come out of there with a championship trophy representing the SWAC, and they actually get their ticket to Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl. As you see in this matchup, it is Prairie View versus FAMU. Prairie View comes in with the record of 6-5, 6-2, and Rattlers are number one. Been number one for most of the year, other than when Central was claiming their fame to the number one spot. With that being said, FAMU comes in dominating the SWAC, at least in terms of records, if nothing else. 8-0, 10-1 overall in the season. With that being said, want to look at this from an offensive perspective. I'm going to start with you, Charles. In terms of the offensive side of the ball, let's start with FAMU. What are your thoughts in terms of what FAMU does offensively?
Tremendous in terms of their wide receivers, their skill position guys, and then having a quarterback who can get the ball to them. We watched them really dissect Texas Southern in the second half of their game, and they got it done with the running game. I thought that was very impressive. But just when you take a look at the talent on the offensive side of the ball, even the offensive line, they're a gritty bunch that does a great job in terms of protecting Jeremy Musa. So when you take a look at FAM, you know, they check all the boxes on the offensive side of the ball. But there is, you know, a metric that people need to make sure that they keep a look at on Saturday, and we're looking at 90% rank. So that's definitely going to affect the passing game.
Good stuff. When you talk about the offensive player of the year, Jeremy Musa from FAMU, he also has a lineman, Cameron Colvin, that has been getting it done. That is represented by the first team offense in terms of what that looks like. So, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of FAMU from an offensive perspective? What do you see?
A couple of data points that stick out on me. If you're talking just overall team stats, and if you look at it, you know, FAMU is okay on the rushing side. If you look at overall, you know, stats, you know, I think they finished, it was Texas Southern, Grambling, Prairie View, Jackson State somewhere. FAMU was somewhere in the middle in total rushing offense. But their defense against the rush, 88 yards. 88 yards. They're allowing 88 yards rushing, which means their defensive line, their linebackers are tuned in to, you know, stop the rush. But offensively, you know, on the rushing side, they're good. Now, if you look on the passing side, it's a totally different story. Guess who's number one in passing offense? Yes, yeah, FAMU. They're 240, 250 yards a game. So you throw that with, the mediocre yards of offense. Then you go back, I looked at their 3 or 4 last games. Their split between running and pass is approximately 64 to 34%. So they're pretty much 2/3 passing and the rest running, unless the offensive scheme or the defensive scheme changes. So they're strong on both sides. They tend to lean toward the passing side, and that's why Musa is who he is. He's offensive player of the year for the SWAC, and their offensive side is just completely balanced. They have a plethora of running backs and receivers. They can go in the cupboard and go down to number 2 or number 3. It's not just 1 or 2 individuals. So they're very strong on the offensive side.
Man, that's cool. When you talk about it, it's a lot of power that both of you all are talking about there. Let's go to the other team. Going to Prairie View. With that being said, Mike, sticking with you, what are your thoughts in terms of Prairie View on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, so Prairie View is almost just the opposite. If you look at it, their offense, they're 160 yards rushing offense a game on average. But if you look at passing, they're not as high up in the stats as well. So their balance tends to be on the other side, tend to be a little bit more heavy on the run side than on the pass side. And in games that they've lost, they've been made one-dimensional. We said that earlier again. So I think for them, they will have to have a better mix. And if you look at their last 3 or 4 wins, if you look at the mix of yards they've had, it's been a more balanced attack between offensive and defensive. So if you get Conley comfortable, who's done a great job, they have him, and if they use him more on the RPO plays as well, they can be a lot more effective. Prairie View also don't let it slip. Now they also have a plethora of running backs as well that can hurt you. They have Caleb Johnson, they have Brooks, they have Young, they have Murray. They have a plethora of backs. You have Trajan Spiller at receiver, you have Ronald Young, and I'm going off the top of my head, but they have a plethora of folks both at the running back and the receiving. It's just that for whatever reason, their game tends to slant a little bit more toward the running side. You heard Charles mention the rain. If it rains heavily, that does favor a team that runs well or has a running-based offense. So we'll see how that plays out this Saturday.
It's going to be interesting when you talk about that rain. It's talking about 85%, 90%. It's not likely that's going to clear. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the game in general. Also, Charles, as I go to you to talk about this, you spoke about the offensive line and how it's a veteran offensive line. One of those gentlemen was Eric Dunn, offensive lineman, the 6'7", 275 redshirt senior, agricultural major. First team SWAC in terms of him showing his talent. Again, what do you think about Prairie View from an offensive perspective?
From an offensive perspective, I don't think it's any secret that the strength is in the running game. When you take a look at Caleb Johnson, Mount Antoine, Jamarius Brooks, between the 3 of them, they've rushed for over 1,100 yards. And I think when you and I go back to the Alabama State game because it's very nuanced when you take a look at the statistics. Trayvon Conley, 5 of 11 for 109 yards in the game. But Prairie View had 42 rushing attempts from Caleb Johnson, Jamarius Brooks, Trayvon Conley, and Ahmad Antoine, and David Murray, the tight end, probably had a couple carries on some short yardage deals there as well. But I think the Alabama State game was very much a template for what you're going to see in the FAMU game. I think, when you sort of limit, if you will, throwing the ball downfield, which is not to say that Trayvon can't, because we've seen it over the past few weeks. Shamar Savage and Chris Herron have come up huge with regards to Prairie View's passing game. But I think the strength undoubtedly is within this veteran, nasty offensive line. Alan Jones, Chance Jones, Danny Joseph, Arrington Taylor, Eric Dunn, Pedro Da Silva, Kobe Lewis, all those guys they've been here, they've done it before. One of the things that Coach Bubba McDowell said coming into the season was that offensive line, they're a veteran group. They've been there, they've done that, they've seen it.
Yep.
Remember, just 2 years ago, they played in front of 50-some-odd thousand people at Jackson State. The stage will not be too big for Prairie View's offense. So I really do believe that this game is a lot closer than what the pundits are saying it's going to be. And like I said, 42 rushing attempts against Alabama State. Alabama State's only given up a little bit less than 100 yards a game. They're number 2 in the SWAC in terms of rushing defense. I think there are some similarities when you take a look at Alabama State and FAMU, and I think you'll see the exact same blueprint going into this game.
Let's take our next break. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll get into the major division with some changes in the major division, so we will drop that today. You've heard about the ranking from Prairie View and FAMU, but let's see the rest of the rankings after this next.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Let's get into these top poll rankings. Week number 13. Got some changes in here. We have the same top 7. We do have a new entrant in terms of receiving votes. We have Southern Jaguars that have moved up ahead of Tennessee State with their victory in the Bayou Classic. Finished the season at 6-5, 5-3, 169 points. Tennessee State slides a spot at 6-5, 2-4 overall, 150 points. And Grambling State is at number 10 at 5-6, 4-4 overall, 147 points. With that being said, let's get into the top 7. With the top 7, at number 7, you have Jackson State Tigers, 7-4, 5-3, 175 points. They stay at the top 7 spot in week number 13 as their season is complete. At number 6, you have Alabama State Hornets, who's on a ride, but they lost that last game to Prairie View, where they are at number 6, 6-4, 5-3, 180 points, but they stay in that 6th position as their season is complete as well. At number 5, Alcorn State Braves, 7-4, 6-2, 191 points. They remain at the 5 spot. Bringing us to number 4, Prairie View A&M Panthers are 6-5, 6-2, 192 points, remaining in the 4th spot. This is where we get some change in week number 13. The 3rd spot is North Carolina Central, the Eagles, 9-3, 4-1. Great season, and a tough loss in the playoffs. Really a lot went changed as they were leading at that game at the halftime and really moving forward in the game against the Richmond Spiders until Richard seemed to bang himself up and get a little hurt and nicked up in that play where he scored to go up 21 points. But they're at 220 points, and they fall from the 2 spot as number 2, as you may imagine, is the Howard Bison, 6-5, 4-1, 214 points. Did not play this last weekend as they're waiting to see who they will play in the Celebration Bowl to close everything out. But they did have that crucial victory in the second to the final week of the regular season over North Carolina Central. Then they followed up with a big win in Morgan State to clinch that bid to win the MEAC and be the team representing the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl. Brings us to number 1. The number 1 team continues to be in unanimous voting context at the number 1 position. It's Florida A&M Rattlers, 10-1, 8-0, 12 first place votes, 252 points. They will be favored in this matchup, and if they're able to get past Prairie View, you have to imagine they will be favored in the Celebration Bowl. Can they get it done with everything ahead of them? They have deserved their ranking this year in a perfect position. Can they close things out is the big question of the day in a lot of ways. With that being said, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 7 rankings in week number 13?
Can't argue whatsoever. I mean, FAMU is deserving number 1 going into this week. And when you take a look at them, they are that monster. So it is going to be a daunting task for Prairie View to knock off this tough FAMU Rattler team. All headwinds are pointing in their direction in terms of getting to the Celebration Bowl. But, oh, boy, we got to play a game on Saturday. It's going to be a fun one.
Good point. Good point. Great comments. People flirting with this game and looking at the next game. You have Silas Edward McMorris says 2 of our top players didn't play in the first game against FAMU. He thinks that'll be a difference. Brandon King has already sent Prairie View to Celebration Bowl. Or let me say, he said if they get past. So he did clarify that. He said you got the 1 running game from Prairie View. He said it doesn't get any easier for FAMU if they get past it with Howard, including Ed and James. Great point that he makes there. It will be fascinating. They will have a game where they'll get a chance to test up their ability to stop the run in this matchup. When they get past it, they'll have to do it again. With that being said, that's why the games are played. Mike, what are your thoughts in the top 7 with all that being said?
No, nothing whatsoever. I think you hit it spot on with that. I think FAMU is deserving. They're the big kid on the block. They are sitting in the driver's seat, the catbird seat. They're the bully that needs to be hit in the nose. So they're flexing. I think, Prairie View's going to have to take the approach. If you saw Rocky 3, Rocky goes against Club LA. AKA Mr. T. He's big, but you're going to have to outbox him. So we'll see how the matchup goes. But, FAMU is deserving. North Carolina Central, unfortunately, fell short. I didn't see all of the game, but it looked like when Travius Richard got hurt, it looked like it just changed the complexion of the game. So that, and I don't have any, X's and O's or whatever, but it looked like when he stumbled or hurt himself, it looked like it just changed it. So, no, with 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, no whatsoever. So your poll hit it this week, Doc. I ain't got nothing to say.
I appreciate that, Mike. And with that being said, you brought up the driver's seat. Guess what we got here? We had an 18-wheeler that will be headed to Atlanta. Moving into week 14, we have FAMU, Howard in the driver's seat. You see Prairie View's up there, though. They're just waiting to see if they can bump off the Goliath matchup, see if they can bump off FAMU to get into that driver's seat in that matchup. It'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. With that being said, let's go to our last break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get back to the SWAC championship game featuring Prairie View and Panthers and the FAMU and in Rattlers. We'll look at the special teams, particularly in this rain, as both of you had talked about. That could be intriguing. There's oftentimes a lot of hitting yardage, field position, due to the special team. Field goals, extra points could be crucial and important. I want to see what these gentlemen have to say. With that, stick with us as we'll be right back after this last break.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, let's look at this special teams play. Always key in terms of these matchups as we look at this last segment. I'm going to go to you, Mike, in terms of special teams play. Let's start with Prairie View from your perspective. What do you see from a special teams perspective with Prairie View?
Well, I think if you look at kicking, and you know they're kind of in the middle of the pack. I've won couple of games on 3-point attempts in their kicking game. So I think their kicking game is strong. If that's what you're asking, they have 3 strong kickers, I believe. Because the only reason I know that is we actually got the kicker wrong earlier this year when they won against TSU. So
we didn't have a local broadcast.
But I do know that they've won a couple of games off of their strong field of kickers. They have one that's more of a distance guy, and the name escapes me right now. The other thing is if you look at kind of the return game. And if you look at, how they stand on the return, they actually are kind of middle of the pack, whereas FAMU is actually kind of more toward the top on the ticking game. And where that comes into play is if you have, a wet ball or whatever, the ball typically doesn't go that far. So it may neutralize the game. But the other thing, if you recall, Coach Simmons at Prairie View was very strong on that third leg, on that special teams. So I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe has a couple of plays up his sleeve. But Prairie View on the other side has a very strong kicking game. They and against the returns, they've given up a couple of big plays. So kind of scratch your head and you kind of like, ooh, they gave up a serious return on their kickoff. So something that Prairie View has to work on in that aspect of the game.
Good stuff when you talk about the special teams. It'll be fascinating to say with that said. Obviously, it was Villa Gomez with the 50-yard kick.
Villa Gomez, yes.
It ultimately is the difference between Prairie View making this road trip to Tallahassee versus Alcorn State making the road trip to Tallahassee. Charles, I know you were going to spit that out there. And you can say it again because I know you appreciate the way it rolls off as being announcer that, and you're perfectly correct in terms of not having the advantage of having a home team broadcast. But what are your thoughts in terms of Prairie View's special teams in this contest?
Well, Carlos Villa Gomez, he does have a game winner. When you talk about kicking game winner at Alcorn, the big leg for Prairie View is Guillermo Rodriguez. He had a 50
That's the big leg,
against Mississippi Valley State. But Carlos Villa Gomez is the more accurate kicker. He's the one who'll get probably more of the lion's share of opportunities if there are field goal opportunities for Prairie View. But when you take a look at special teams, best in the business is Cameron Gillis for FAMU. First team All SWAC, 10 of 12 on the season. He has a long of 44 yards, if I'm not mistaken. So you would tend to sort of edge towards FAMU in that regards. And then they're punting. Trey Wilhoit for FAMU. He also is averaging 42 yards per kick, averaging 42.6 yards. From the punting standpoint, he has a long of 62 yards. So, like I said, FAMU, they check all the boxes in regards to special teams as well. You did mention individual like Brian Jenkins. He's had a couple of huge kickoff returns this season for Prairie View that have been called back. But we know what sort of a dynamic individual he is. And he's an individual who can flip the field for Prairie View. So that's something that you kind of have to keep in the back of your mind in terms of he's been there, done that in the SWAC in terms of be playing in some big games, and he's dying to get the ball in his hands. So it'll be a very interesting look-see with regards to special teams. But I think the edge slightly does go to FAMU in that regard.
Let me stick with you, Charles, and take a little more insight in terms of FAMU special teams. give a little more in terms of your thoughts in terms of what FAMU does really well on the special team.
One of the things that jumps out at me is that they don't allow for the big game for the big play to happen on special teams, and I think that's one thing that you just sort of keep an eye on. They've done a good job, I believe, in kickoff coverage and punt coverage as well. So you don't see that big play, that momentum turn play that could happen in regards to playing a FAMU team. That's a well coached, well disciplined team. You see that.
Yeah, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of FAMU special team?
Yeah, I guess I would agree. I don't know if there's a stat for that, but you don't see big plays against FAMU. And I think that's a hallmark. I mentioned Coach Simmons when he was at Prairie View. You know, Prairie View had a very strong, special teams unit. And he was known for having, not only a strong return game, but a strong coverage game. I think FAMU is nothing shy of that. So you don't see big return, as CB mentioned. I echo that 150%. You don't see big returns against FAMU. You don't see those types of big plays against FAMU.
Good stuff. Let's get into, as we close things up, get into the SWAC all superlative teams. Let me go to you, Charles, in terms of offense, first team offense, in terms of those superlative teams, and then we'll get into some of these individual awards as well. The first team SWAC offense, break it down for us.
No doubt. Well, the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year is aforementioned Jeremy Musa from Florida A&M. But we take a look at the first team offense. Ladarius Owens, running back from Texas Southern. Jarvian Howard, running back from Alcorn. Offensive lineman Eric Dunn from Prairie View. Offensive lineman Cameron Colton from FAMU. Robert Alston, also on the offensive line from Alabama State. Deontay Graham, offensive lineman for Jackson State. And Ryan Atkins, offensive lineman for Arkansas Pine Bluff. They round out the offensive lineman. Skill position, wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson from Alabama State. And wide receiver Montario Hunt from Alcorn State. First team all-conference tight end was Tavarius Griffin from Alcorn State. So those were your first teamers, all SWAC.
Good stuff. Congratulations to the first team offense for SWAC. Congratulations to the second team as well. Tough to make that first SEC team among 12 teams in the conference. So doing some kudos work. And you shouted out, obviously, the offensive player of the year, Jeremy Musa. He will be featured in this matchup this Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see. With that being said, Mike, if you would give us the defensive first team, defensive player of the year as well.
All right. Starting out with the defensive lineman, Malachi Bailey from Alcorn State. Anthony Dunn Jr. from FAMU. Sundiata Anderson from Grambling State. And Kelby Givens from Southern. Kind of moving back to the linebacker core, Isaiah Major, big name. From FAMU, of course. Colton Adams, Alabama State. Rico Dozier from UAPB or Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then you go to the black backfield. You got Omar Hill Robinson from Bethune-Cookman. You got Kendall Bowler from FAMU. You've got Jordan Carter from Southern and Eric Smith from Florida A&M. The other thing is you look at what's weird about this unit. Of the 11 players, I think there's only one or two that are from the East. I think the others are all from the West. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, great point. Let's look at that individual superlatives top list. Both of y'all talked about the offensive player of the year, Jeremy Musa. Defensive player of the year in terms of that matchup was Isaiah Major. Both of them from FAMU. Beautiful thing. Chase Wilson, Texas Southern, newcomer of the year. Shout out to Chase Wilson over here at Texas Southern University. I literally taught his father as he came back to school and finished up his degree. So I remember Chase growing up and sneaking into some of those classes with his dad. He used to sponsor, and still does if you look at it, pure sports, I should say, in terms of the workouts that he did with his son and other athletes that he was training to go get scholarships. And actually some of them would come back during the off season to work out with him. So shout out none other than Chase Wilson and his father for getting it done. Newcomer of the year right there at the Texas Southern University. Then you had your freshman of the year was Javon Robinson, Grambling State University, getting it done. And old Coach Willis Simmons, Shotgun Willis Simmons, Florida A&M Coach of the Year, always kind to us. So as much as it is a challenge in this matchup, kudos to FAMU. It's good to see Coach Willis Simmons doing well, although he switched colors, is changing and getting it done with the FAMU Rattlers. Shout out to Coach Willis Simmons. Charles, any final statements that you want to give? I know this is the early edition. We'll have a packed house on Thursday to take even a deeper dive, but I really wanted to give folks a chance to look at it in specific units, defense, offense, and special teams. You all gave all the listeners plenty of things to think about this weekend. With that said, any final thoughts that you want to leave as we get ready to close up the show today?
Yeah, it almost sounds cliche, but when you take a look at the inclement weather that we might have in Tallahassee, this game does come down to Prairie View's offensive line versus FAMU's front seven. I think, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to see a similar template to what Prairie View had against Alabama State. Minimal passes, but you're going to see a lot of rushing attempts, and whether it's 2-3 yards, they just have to keep pounding the rock for Prairie View to keep that explosive FAMU offense off the field. So it's going to be an interesting game from that standpoint. Even if you don't get first downs, punt it deep, play a little defense, and just take your chances from that standpoint.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Charles, with that being said, let's see what you have to say, Mike. Any final thoughts in terms of the matchup, at least for this Tuesday? Again, we'll take a deeper dive on Thursday and see how the mix goes in regards to taking another look at different areas of this game. Mike, what do you have to say?
I think it starts with Jeremy Musa and Trayvon Conley. Can Prairie View, put pressure on and make it uncomfortable for Jeremy Musa? On the other side, is FAM going to stick with their record and they're going to put as much pressure on possible and make that side, the other side of the ball, Prairie View in this case, be one-dimensional? But I think I agree the battle will be won in the trenches, but it also stems on who can shave or make the other quarterback very uncomfortable in their scheme of offense as well. So I'll leave it at that. And the rest can go back. We can dive into the specifics on Thursday.
Yeah, some Prairie View folks going down there. A lot of them will have to be members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. This is Founders Weekend. Something about that date, December 4th, especially when you go back to 1906, going up for 117 years ago as of December 4th, 2023.
That's right.
One of the jewels
so
is buried.
Give a little ice cold shout out to all those brothers. We'll be down there. I've had plenty of brothers share some founding information from the local chapter in that area. Founders Day, shout out to Gamma Mu Lambda chapter, Psi Psi Lambda chapter, Beta Nu chapter, obviously, FAMU.
Shout out to the good brothers of Beta Nu.
To the bros, to the bros.
The good brothers of Beta Nu.
I just want to say it's been a while since I came to that house. Came to that house one spring break, and I whooped about 5 of them. So I'm coming back.
Shout out to Ada Gamma. They'll be
bring them on.
Ada Lambdas, the graduate chapters, graduate chapter up there in Dallas doing some big things. They have a fish
big brother,
fry, so don't
big
be
brother Prudential.
if you have the brothers from Texas invading, making sure we do our part to celebrate Founders Day in support of the local chapter there. So shout out to Rufus. A lot of the brothers around here sending me that information, sending some love. Younger brothers from the chapter here, Prairie View, making sure I get that in there. And then I wanted to do another shout out to Brother Eldridge, Raymond Jr. giving me some information on this as well. Shout out to him. Lastly, Brother Vernell Trigg Jr., better known as Lit. He retired recently, so I wanted to give him a special shout out on the show in terms of being able to retire at the age of 53, getting it done, much like Charles.
Getting it done.
Understand their financial
just getting it done.
Man, these folks here know what they're doing. Young guns getting it done.
I'm sitting here stressing on South American trips, and y'all retiring.
Text me, calling me, man, like I ain't got to work. I ain't got to. Y'all go over there and play some golf, something like that. Too much. And then I also want to shout out both Vernell and his wife, Cynthia Trigg. They created their official family foundation mission. Our mission is to globally empower communities through education, environmental sustainability, social and health initiatives. Leveraging technology for social good, we strive to build resilience in the times of crisis. We're dedicated to preserving culture, diversity, fostering youth leadership, and improving humanity overall well-being. Through these efforts, we aim to create a lasting positive impact, ensuring equal opportunities, community empowerment, and sustainable future for generations to come. Educator, principal, founder, Cynthia Trigg, as well as Vernell, getting it done, not just in terms of pulling it out, but pushing it forward. So I wanted to give a special privilege of shouting those out. And again, happy Founder Day to the bruh before we get back on the show, in case we can't do one Sunday. Obviously, by then, Founders Day will be on Monday. So just wanted to officially shout that out. Give him some love, Charles. Let him know. Throw out the A5, Charles.
Get a little ice.
Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You know, we had to mess with Roy a little bit in the background there. Yes. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the college HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday right here at 6 o'clock. We'll be back on Thursday, ready to give you some more information. Looks like we'll be bringing in Brian and AD of Sports Rap. Check us out usually on Sundays. We will give you a Sunday as we close up the season, but we'll let you know how we're going to look for this Sunday as we'll be traveling. We'll look forward to the latest news in the lab. We'll continue to give you that. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DrKNYATTACAVIL. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter. Facebook and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you check in O&G Strike Zone, which will be on tomorrow. Certainly know that they will give you insights in all you can know about the SWAC championship game with that crew there. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Mike?
Lecture.
Dismiss.